Okay, we'll kick off and see who joins us. So thank you for hopping on this call. Obviously, my name is Bryn Edwards. I work at vegetablesWA. I've been doing the benchmarking project for the last 3 years and looking to get another one up and running, which we're very close to doing. So just a couple of housekeeping things. You're all on mute at the moment, but I'll present a few bits and bobs. Hey, Rod. Like I said, you're all on mute at the moment. I'll talk through how I put the article together and just explain a few more bits and bobs about it. And then after that, you can unmute yourself and ask me some questions. And we'll get into a bit of a discussion and a dialogue if that's of benefit. Just so we're super transparent, we're recording this. And for those who couldn't come on it, this is going to go on our YouTube channel probably later today. So I think that pretty much covers most of the stuff. So look, before I get into the detail of how I put it together, that article in the Grower magazine, I just wanted to put a few things in place right from the very start, in that some of the observations that I've seen from doing the benchmarking project over the last 3 years and really sitting with growers and looking at how they make decisions, the level of data and detail that they can draw on. I believe, and I've tested this assumption with a number of growers, I believe that many of our growers sit at a slight imbalance in the fact that where particularly places like the supermarkets and input providers have their ways of doing business has matured, they themselves have got access to more and more data, and your average grower has less so. And so one of the things I really wanted to just provoke with this article was the whole concept that there is really good, freely available data out there for people to go and actually look at and play around with, so that that can form part of their assumptions upon which they can make some more business decisions. The other thing was that as I did this analysis, I looked around to see if anybody else had done anything like it. And to my knowledge, nobody else had, which I thought was kind of interesting. And also, over the last 3 years of talking to growers about the inner workings of their business, and generally whenever I go and see them, the first question I ask them is, how's business? And invariably they'll tell me the woes. And the woes generally have something to do with price, and it's something to do with what people are paying for things in the supermarkets and the difference between that. But generally, when I poke around those sort of things, there's I think it's fair to say there's a lot of assumptions and less sort of solid data upon which they can put those assumptions together. So again, I wanted to try and provoke something for growers to start to look at some of the information that they've got internally, and we'll come to that in a minute, particularly from the benchmarking stuff that I drew on. And some of the stuff internally they can look at for how they can manage things both outside of the business and inside the business. I think it's fair to say right from the very start that I'm fully aware of the shortfalls in this data, in the analysis that I've done. It is kind of blunt, and I make no apologies for that. But I think at a top level, theoretically and mathematically, it holds water. So I'm just going to go and share my screen now. I think where's all the stuff? Cool. So can you now see a web page? Just give us a thumbs up to make sure you see a web page. Super. So look, the article, which you can see here, can you see that? Yeah, which most people have seen. As I explained, there's a bit of an imbalance in terms of some of the information that growers can draw on. And so I found, and it's just through me doing work here at vegetablesWA, did I start to come across some different and interesting places that yielded some information, particularly the Harvest to Home website, which we'll go into in a minute. So I started playing around with the stuff, and all of a sudden this idea of doing this analysis dropped out. So the first place was the this Harvest to Home website, which, you know, as you can see, is harvesttohome.net.au. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this is a Hort innovation project. They were absolutely love the fact that I've inadvertently used it and promoted it for them. But there's a lot of really, really good information, and I would recommend any grower to go and spend some time acquainting yourself. And I'm actually trying to get the guy who designed the website to come and do a webinar with me so we can go through it in more detail, because there's a lot of really awesome stuff in here. But basically this is Hort Innovation have paid for a load of Nielsen home scan data. So this is where homes and families are actually scanning in the information, scanning in what they actually buy at the tills in some of the supermarkets, major and smaller ones. And they do that over a period of time. There's a whole variety of really interesting stuff on here. But the key place that I pulled most of the information out, because it's really good for trends, but this was pretty much the only page where I found I could extract some Western Australian specific information, and this is on this market overview. So I can pick any of the chosen products up here, you know, capsicum. And you'll see here that it shows us the percentage of sales growth. And this is across the 52 weeks, the financial, they've moved it on since the time I've done it. But they show you for 52 weeks previous. And this is the percentage of sales growth and the volume growth in Western Australia. I mean, I think these two with a real sort of, these two here were the really important columns that I used for my analysis. So what this is telling me is this year, the annual household purchase by a family was 4 capsicums in this instance was $42.58. Right, so that's how much was spent on average by Western Australian families. You can break down those families much more by going into some of the who is buying and the 2-year trends and stuff like that. And there's a whole lot more information down here, which is the topic for another webinar another day. But I took this, and then this also tells me the annual household purchases in terms of volume. So what I've got here in the instance of capsicums is that 5.4 kilograms were bought annually on average by homes in Western Australia, and they spent $42.58. Does that make sense? Pretty simple stuff. And yeah, I went through a variety of vegetables here, and I extracted most of that merely just by copying and pasting it out. And I'll share with you in a minute the actual spreadsheet that I used. So this gave me an idea of what consumers generally were spending on vegetables in Western Australia during the financial year of, when was it, 1920, I think it was. I then went to the Market West website, which, you know, Inchi and Rob are more than knowledgeable about. And again, this is, oh, wait a minute. This is, you know, a freely available site. I'll just go back. You can go up to here on the website, click in and select vegetables. What I did was I took a yearly report, which starts to get pretty big and quite detailed. And just in the interest of transparency, I will show you what I did is I downloaded all of the prices for the monthly basis for the year from July to December and then January to June across the financial year. This shows me the size of the container. I then normalize these, so all the prices you see here are a per kilogram price, and then I ran some averages, max and min across that. I generally tended to include West Australian prices and didn't really include anything from other states. What this then did, it took me a little while but this gave me a min, max, and average and medium for each month, and then I landed an average price across the year. So what we've got now is, and again, it is blunt, it's how much the consumer paid, and then how much growers who put vegetables into the market got. Granted, that doesn't cover prices that went direct to the supermarket, but it gives us a very good idea. So what I then did was I copied those pieces of detail in terms of what the annual household price was in terms of value and what the volume was. I divided one by the other to give us a consumer price per kilogram. And, I explained this in the article, but I'm just going to greater depth to show you what I did. And then I took the average market price, which is showing you how I calculated. And then basically what I did was I divided one by the other. So the idea here was that for every dollar that the consumer spent is how much was returned to the grower in terms of this was the price at the market, and this was the price that they were generally paying in the supermarket. And this is where you get for every dollar spent, you get 30 cents returned in the case of beetroot, or 23 cents in the terms of broccoli. The next thing I did was obviously I'm the project manager for the benchmarking project. So we produced a set of 3-year averages, which was across the program. So what that means is essentially that growers that participated in every year, we took an average across a number of key data points. So this gives us almost like a 3-year rolling average, which we hope to extend out to 5 years with the next project. And one of the key measures that we look at there is operating efficiency. So that is how much have you spent, your operating costs, and what's your revenue, what have you brought in? And we divide one by the other. So it gives us an idea of how many cents generally it takes a grower to make $1. And across the 3-year average, that was round about 72 cents to make $1. So most growers on average were spending 72 cents to make $1. So then I took that percentage and applied it to what was returned by the grower, and the other side of that, the 28% gives us the operating profit, and then through a bit of further analysis, we worked out the percentage of operating profit that is generally retained as investable surplus, because operating profit is before tax and finance and wages of management and things like that. So the investable surplus is how much is actually left after everybody's been paid that the grower can then put back into their business. And And then we plotted those in graphs in terms of investable surplus, which is in the red bar, what's returned to growers in terms of green, and then the yellow in terms of what is the investable surplus. And I guess, as I said, and I've had a few conversations with growers about this already, and I think quite a few of them have landed at this point already, is that the point of the article wasn't immediately that everybody, to suggest that everybody should go and grow sweet potato because it's returning you 11 cents investable surplus. The point of it is to consider the size of the red bar and the size of the green bar, and then the size of the investable surplus. These, as I said, were taking averages from 3 different data points. Any grower that's participated in the benchmarking project over the last 3 years can easily go and plug their information into this. Any grower that's participated in the benchmarking project can go and plug their, overall over the course of this year, how many kilograms they sold and what was the revenue per that vegetable line, and they could have their own price per kilogram that they managed to achieve, and then they can compare that to this home scan data. So anybody who's participated in the benchmarking project or also has a decent level of record keeping could easily go and plug their own data into this. Super easy. So if you supply direct to the supermarkets, or you have a mixture of the two, sending them into the market, you could easily go and do that. All the information that we provided for you is there, and you can plug that in and you can compare it against any of those price per kilograms that the consumer paid. So as I said, I know that this has caused an amount of questioning, and I know that it's caused people to ask all sorts of questions, actually, ranging from, should I do sweet potato, to, is that a fair reflection of what goes on in terms of the red bar? I think that the point of the article, which it's starting to do, is that we get to a better level of conversation about this that's built off data and information, so that we can start to understand are growers actually getting a fair return, both individually and collectively as well. Because that's one of the other things I was hoping to provoke, was not just am I getting a fair return, but are we getting a fair return as vegetable growers across the industry? Because that's kind of a key interest point for me here in vegetablesWA, and I know Maureen at least shares those sorts of views at times. So yeah, I think that pretty much tells, I've been super transparent with everything that I did. I'm kind of happy to chuck that now into a Q&A if you want to unmute yourself. If anyone's got any questions. Hi, Maureen.
Hi, Bryn. How you doing?
Very well.
Where am I? What am I doing? All right. So with the Harvest to Home.
Yes.
That one has been around for quite some time, Bryn. I know that when I was going to the eastern states with the national panels, that one was quite around, and I could see that happening.
Right.
So, but we just didn't get around to using it, and I guess some growers may have done. Some of the bigger growers may have done, because they would have participated in it. And I know that they've got, just on those, they've got it to the consumers, but I thought they also brought it into the food service industry as well. They had some data. to make to the food service as well.
Yeah, so I think listening to what you're saying there, there's probably some merit in us probably doing a little bit more promotion of this site. Yeah, after all, it is, like I said, it's funded by Hort Innovation, so you guys have all in effect paid for it. And probably there's probably some merit in a more deep dive into this, so people know what's in it. Yeah, I know that Amber sends out most months links to some of the case studies and particularly the comprehensive reviews, which could be quite interesting. Certainly their COVID updates were particularly interesting in terms of what's moving around. So, yeah.
And obviously with us, and I don't think we've submitted our data this year to Paul.
This is recorded.
Okay, we have, but this last year we will have our kilos on it, which is going to be very interesting because prior to that was only the crates and assumed the kilos on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
that's going to be interesting for us anyway.
Yeah,
I mean, it will be for other growers.
Yeah, and I guess on that point, the way the fee for service is paid is now done by per kilograms rather than, the way it was done before. And so the other article that I put out there, which showed you the production around the state, it didn't actually have a name on it, but I was guilty of it. But the one that showed us production around the state and what's being produced by kilograms, sold kilograms, as per the fee for service, that's given us a much great, I was able to produce that article quite simply because we've moved to that. Now, why do I tell people this is because if you want to know the number of, the volume of kilograms that you have sold, then your fee for service is a great place to go and get a total on that. And if it's not what you think it is, then that's a good, it's worth a chat with Ingrid about that. But yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, you'd know how many were produced and then what kilograms were produced and what kilograms were sold. So you could also understand your waste point as well. But anything else, Maureen?
No, I think just at the moment my brain is thinking, so.
I'll come back to you in a minute then.
Come back to me, yeah.
Inchi, any questions?
Yeah, I guess I have a question when it comes to the wholesaler or the market agents and the supermarket's share. It seems a little bit disproportionate to when you compare it to what the actual HPAs say. Your formula, I'm not sure how you've reached that. So if you go back to your spreadsheet, some of the results show that there's, 80%, according to your report, some produce.
Yeah.
I don't believe that is a true reflection of what's going on when you consider that the HPAs dictate a lesser amount, obviously, of what's been kept by the market agents. So I don't know what the supermarkets are getting, but the agents certainly aren't getting that.
Yeah, no. And I know Rod has spoken to me about that. I mean, whether, in reflection, we could, if this was going to be an ongoing thing, whether we have another bar in there, which is market agents, and then another one that's almost like supermarkets. Because by putting market agents and supermarkets all in the same thing, I appreciate.
It's a big concern, obviously, for us.
It is. Yeah. But at the same, I get that. I guess at the same time, the focus really was, and this has probably been one of the messages that we've been trying to get through the benchmarking is that there's lots you can do within your business to increase your own profitability. And so it was very much the scope was what's going on for the vegetable grower and then what goes on afterwards. And then afterwards was just one big thing. And so I appreciate that market agents get swept up with supermarket and it doesn't look that good for them in this. But the focus here was what's going, because it, focusing for our member growers was what's going on within your farm and then what goes on afterwards.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
yeah,
It's just
valid. It's valid.
keep that in mind, because looking at that, who the hell would want to grow lettuce if, the agents are keeping all that?
Ask Maureen.
But you're right. You're right. I mean, it's when you're talking about lettuce, you're probably predominantly talking about the iceberg lettuce, those growers, and they really have it tough sometimes. They really do.
Yeah, and look, we can pick holes. I could easily, pick holes in this analysis, but like I said right from the start, it's quite blunt. And if anything, hopefully it draws people's attention to the fact that they can see what's going on in the market, because you guys share the information, and they can see what consumers are generally doing and just be that bit more informed than what's gone on historically within their own business, as opposed to looking at what's going on across the industry.
So Izzy, I would say that lettuce that's in there, that could be, it could be our fresh cut salad type things. And I wouldn't say that it was the iceberg lettuce that price would reflect. Sure. Only unless there's been storms around and they've been decimated. So yeah.
Yeah, sure. I don't know if Rod's got anything else to add to that. You're on mute.
He's trying to unmute himself.
There you are.
Yeah. Bryn had gagged me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I suppose just to develop on, obviously when this information came out and we did have a conversation, Bryn.
Yeah, we did.
Just moving on, adding to what Angie said, because obviously we've discussed it. It's very important. You first look at that and it's scary from a market agent's perspective, paints them in a bad light. So I think there is some greater detail in behind the scenes that you could provide. It's a good start, but I'd be interested to know the split, because as Angie says, we think we know what each HPA says, the broad HPA component of what an agent charges a grower, and if it was anything worse than that, we would hope we would hear from the grower, which indirectly or directly, which sometimes we do. But I'd be interested to know a couple of things out of that, which you might be able to develop down the track, Bryn, is not only the supermarket component, but can you split it between the chains and the non-chains, the independents? Because you would hope that for our purposes, because the markets themselves are independent grocer and food service dominated. Obviously, the chains do buy through here, but mostly go direct. So that split would be important to, first of all, ascertain that the market agent retention is consistent and relatively acceptable, because it's important for the markets themselves and therefore our agents for the industry to flourish, and including the growers. So that, first of all, the return to growers needs to also be feasible, as does the reinvestable component, because that makes the whole industry healthy. So we would be keen in the future, and we're more than happy to assist. I think those statistics that that INSEE administers are much more reliable than they used to be. We spend a lot of time and money in extracting that information, both from a product line and also a bit like what you did. We also found the lowest common denominator in the the unit of sale, so that it was the information was more meaningful. So that and it now uses core data rather than perhaps allowing for manually input data from a sales perspective. So
and I made a note of drawing attention to that in the article by saying it should be noted that the data is more reliable since automation of data collection.
Yeah, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, because I know that in the past I've suggested people looking at it, and it's been dismissed because it's been manually entered and stuff like that. And you know, having found out a lot more of the great work you've been doing with it, it's become more and more of a valuable resource, which again, I believe growers should be regularly.
Well, the danger was that the data was going to become irrelevant because wasn't broad enough in scope and in real time. So as you saw, I think when you brought up the data before, I think the data was from yesterday. So it was important that, you know, we think we've done our bit in regards to giving available information to the industry. And there are a range of agencies that use that. And therefore, you know, if we can enhance it in any way and also, as I say, get our relevance, our market agent relevance in the overall scheme of things, that would be, we're happy to work collectively with you.
Excellent. And this is a recorded thing, so you by all means give Rod a ring.
I'll say someone photoshopped me into.
There we go. Does anybody else have any other questions, or should we draw it there?
So, Bryn, when you do that data, and you talk about the data to the market agents and to the supermarkets and to the independents, would that include the outside wholesalers that you're looking at as well?
Remember where I got the information from? There is the capacity to go further into it. Let's just go back.
Maureen, are you talking about secondary wholesalers?
So
maybe, well, you know, yeah, probably, Rod. I mean, we supply the markets, but we supply wholesalers as well.
Yep.
And they're not necessarily in the markets.
No, that's correct. A good point.
And they are, the data that we're using is from our agents within the market. So
that's correct.
Wouldn't be in our data.
Yeah, I know.
So the harvest to home, it does go into more detail. But once you stray, what I found was once you stray outside of this table, you're into Australian data as opposed to West Australian data.
Yeah, I think I thought they had food service in there too at one stage, Bryn. And I mean that was a number of years ago that they did that project.
Yes.
So yeah, I guess they've been doing that up to date all the time. How much reading do I need to do?
How long's a piece of string?
Oh,
how informed do you want to be?
Oh, I'm nearly 70.
No excuse, Maureen. Your marbles function perfectly well.
Yeah, my mum. Yeah.
Maureen, maybe you can get it on Audible.
Yeah.
And put some headphones on when you go to bed at night. And
right. Thanks, Rod. Much appreciated.
Yeah, have all. Just all the data.
Maximise your downtime.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
There we go. Some productivity tips from Rod.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there we go. All right then. Well, thank you very much for taking the time today. I think it was really important, Rod and Inchi, that we made that clear delineation between what market agents get and supermarkets. I hope that for also anybody who's watching this in a record, that you get a clearer idea of some of the information that you can get hold of, whether it's the harvest to home or the Perth markets, and now understand the greater reliability of the data that's easily accessible out there. And obviously, if you would like to pitch your own numbers within that sort of calculation, then by all means get in touch, because it looks like we're going to do another 3 years of financial analysis, so and benchmarking with growers, so across horticulture. So,
so guys, how many growers do you think log on to the Perth markets to get that data? Would you know?
Probably an interesting question.
I would be able to see, but I don't know off the top of my head, no.
Okay, I know. I mean, we've, probably over a year, we probably only log in about 3 times. But it's probably because I'm looking to buy apples or something else. So, I mean, only because mine is a set business. It's a set price. So that's not that's not relevant. But I'm just thinking, how many growers do access that? Do they take that time to go in and access it?
Yeah, we certainly do get some coming through, and then some will obviously contact us and ask questions as well. But like I said, off the top of my head, I don't know. We do have about 5,000 people access that.
Yeah.
Some only a few times a year. Others are on a daily or weekly basis. So it varies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Superb.
All
right then.
Thank you.
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Bryn.
everybody. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.